been at the gym watching someone grind through their push-ups, arms shaking, face scrunched up, pushing through those last few reps and thought, man, I wish somebody could just do that for me. Most people laugh at that because obviously it sounds absurd. Nobody can do your push-ups for you. But here is what gets me. Those exact same people who laugh at that will walk right out of the gym and spend the rest of their day trying to get somebody else to do the equivalent of their push-ups in every other part of life. They want somebody else to make their decisions for them. They want somebody else to structure their day. They want somebody else to carry the weight that was only ever meant for their shoulders. And I think that is fascinating. Not because people are lazy, but because somewhere along the way, we all picked up this belief that the hard stuff could be handed off to someone else. Now listen closely, because this is where folks get it twisted. There are things you can borrow, and there are things you simply cannot. You can borrow money. You can borrow a book. You can borrow an idea from a conversation you had last Tuesday with somebody who knows more than you do. All of that is perfectly fine, and honestly, I would encourage it. But you cannot borrow discipline. You cannot take someone else's work ethic and slap it onto your own life like a bumper sticker. It just does not work that way. You can hire a trainer, sure, and that trainer can show you which exercises to do, what to eat, when to rest. But that trainer cannot wake up at 5 in the morning and want it for you. That part, the wanting it, the doing it, the showing up when every part of you wants to stay under the covers, that belongs to you and only you. Some people are born into families that have resources. Maybe your father built a business. Maybe your mother left behind a trust fund. Maybe you inherited property or money or a name that opens doors before you even walk through them. And all of that is great. I would never argue against having a head start because advantages are real, and pretending they do not exist is just dishonest. But here's what no one can hand down to you. You cannot inherit ambition. You cannot inherit hunger. You cannot inherit that fire inside a person that makes them get up after being knocked flat and say, that is not how this story ends. That fire does not pass through bloodlines. It is not in the will. It is not part of the estate. It gets built one decision at a time inside the person who decides that what they were given is not enough to define what they will become. And this is where it gets personal, because I am not talking about other people anymore. I am talking about you. I am talking about the specific things that make up your everyday life, your habits, your choices, your daily effort. These are the non-transferables. Let me say that again so it really lands. Your habits, your choices, and your daily effort are non-transferable. Nobody else can build your habits for you. Sure, they can suggest them. They can write them down on a whiteboard. They can send you a book with 7 steps and 14 chapters and a foreword by somebody impressive. But at the end of the day, the habit either lives in your body and your routine, or it does not. And if it does not, no amount of outside advice is going to change that. You are the one who has to put the book down and go do the thing the book talked about. That is the part most people skip over. Let us talk about decisions, because this one is especially tricky. People love asking for advice, and I am not against that. I think guidance from someone who has walked a road you have not walked yet is one of the most valuable things in the world. But here is the danger. Some people collect advice the way other people collect stamps. They gather it, sort it, admire it, and never actually use any of it. They ask 10 different people what they should do, and then they do nothing because now they are overwhelmed by 10 different answers. The decision was always yours to make. The advice was just information. The decision, the act of choosing and then living with whatever comes from that choice, that is yours alone. Nobody else will feel the weight of a bad decision you made. Nobody else will enjoy the reward of a good one the way you will. That is the deal. That is how it works. You choose, you carry it, you learn from it, and you choose again. Now here is where people make their most costly mistake. They look at all of this, the effort, the discipline, the decision-making, the habit building, and they think, surely somebody can help me with at least some of this. And the answer is yes, up to a point. People can help you. Mentors can guide you. Friends can encourage you. A spouse can believe in you during those stretches when you have stopped believing in yourself. All of that matters, and I would never downplay it. But none of those people can do the work for you. None of them can sit down at your desk and write your goals in a way that actually means something to your soul. None of them can look in the mirror for you and say, I am not okay with what I see, and I am willing to change. That mirror moment is yours. It has always been yours. And the sooner you stop looking for somebody to share it with, the sooner you can get on with the business of becoming who you were meant to be. There is a line I want you to take with you, and I want you to think about it tonight before you close your eyes. The weight that only you can carry is the only weight that will ever build your strength. Run that through your mind again. Let it settle. Because the things you cannot hand off to someone else are not burdens. They are the raw material of your transformation. The effort nobody else can give is the effort that changes you from the inside out. The discipline nobody can lend you is the discipline that reshapes your character. The choices nobody else can make are the choices that define your legacy. So stop looking around the room for somebody to carry your load. Not because people are unwilling, a lot of them would love to help, but because even if they carried it, it would not build you. And being built is the whole point. I want to say one more thing about this, and I want to say it as simply as I can. The world is full of help. You can find coaches, consultants, advisors, guides, partners, collaborators, and cheerleaders on just about every corner. And that is a wonderful thing. Use them. Learn from them. Let them sharpen you. But when the lights go off and the room gets quiet, and it is just you and your choices, understand that nobody is coming to save you from yourself. Nobody is coming to install your work ethic for you. Nobody is coming to hand you the will to keep going when everything inside you wants to quit. That is your department. That has always been your department. And the moment you accept that, the moment you stop waiting for a rescue, the moment you stop hoping someone else will carry what is yours to carry, that is when your life starts to change. Not because the world changed, but because you finally picked up what was always yours to hold. There is a certain kind of person I want to talk about now, and I want you to pay close attention because you might recognize them. You might even recognize yourself. This is the person who has been getting ready for a very long time. They have been reading the books. They have been going to the seminars. They have been underlining passages and scribbling notes in the margins and telling their friends, I am working on something. But if you were to pull them aside, quietly, away from everyone else, and ask them one simple question, what have you actually started? The room would go dead silent. Because the truth is, they have not started anything. They have been preparing to start. They have been warming up for the warm-up, and the real irreplaceable years of their life have been sliding by while they perfected their preparation. Now, I want to be careful here because I am not against preparation. Preparation matters. A builder does not start swinging a hammer without a blueprint. A farmer does not throw seed in the ground without first understanding the soil. There is wisdom in planning, and I would never tell someone to jump without looking. But there is a difference, a very important difference, between preparing to do something and using preparation as a place to hide. And if you are being honest with yourself, you know which one you have been doing. The person who is truly preparing has a date on the calendar. They have a line in the sand that says, by this point, I move. The person who is hiding behind preparation has no such date. Their timeline is always soon. Their answer is always almost. And almost might be the most dangerous word in the English language because it sounds close, but it really means never. So, what does that look like in everyday life? Because I think the details are what make it real. This is the guy who has had a business idea for 6 years. He has a notebook full of plans. He can tell you the company name, the logo colors, the product pricing, and the target market. Ask him when he is launching, and he will say, I just need a few more things lined up. 6 years of a few more things. 6 years of almost. Meanwhile, the market shifted, the window moved, and somebody else, someone with half his talent but twice his willingness to act, went out and built the exact thing he was still sketching on a napkin. That is not a story about intelligence. That is not a story about resources. That is a story about waiting, and what waiting costs when you make a habit of it. This is also the woman who has wanted to go back to school for 10 years. She has the brochures. She has toured the campus. She has talked to the admissions office twice. But every semester, something gets in the way. The timing is off. The money is not quite there. The kids need her. The job is too demanding. And every single one of those reasons sounds perfectly reasonable, which is exactly what makes them so destructive. Because reasonable reasons are the most effective killers of unreasonable dreams. Nobody pushes back on a reasonable reason. Nobody says that is a weak excuse, because it does not sound like an excuse. It sounds like good judgment. But 10 years of good judgment that produces zero action is not wisdom at all. It is fear wearing a very convincing outfit. And that is the point I want to make as directly as I know how. Most of what people call patience is not patience. It is fear. Most of what people call strategy is not strategy. It is avoidance. And most of what people call waiting for the right time is not careful thinking. It is the quiet daily decision to not risk failing. Because if you never start, you never fail. If you never put your name on something, nobody can criticize it. If you never step into the arena, you never get knocked down. And for a lot of people, that trade feels worth it. They would rather have a spotless record of 0 attempts than a messy record of tries that did not all work out. But let me tell you what that clean record actually says. It says, here lies a person who never tested what they were made of. And that is not something to be proud of. That is a tragedy written in small, quiet ink. Now let's talk about the cost for a minute, because people almost never calculate it honestly. When you wait 1 year to start something that matters to you, you do not just lose a year. You lose the compounding effect of that year. You lose the lessons you would have learned in months 3 and 4 and 7. You lose the confidence you would have built by surviving those early mistakes. You lose the connections you would have made with people who were already heading in the direction you wanted to go. 1 year of waiting is not a flat cost. It is a cascading cost, because everything you would have gained in that year would have fed into the next one and the one after that. So when somebody tells me they have been sitting on something for 5 years, I do not hear 5 years. I hear 15 years of compounded growth that just never happened. And that kind of loss does not show up on a bank statement. It shows up in the quiet ache of a person who knows they are further behind than they should be. Here is what I find especially painful about this pattern. The people who wait the longest are often the ones with the most to give. They are not waiting because they lack ability. They are waiting because they have so much ability that the stakes feel enormous. The talented painter does not pick up the brush because she is terrified that what comes out will not match what she sees in her head. The gifted writer does not start the book because he knows what great writing looks like, and he is scared his first chapter will not measure up. So the very thing that should be pushing them forward, their talent, their taste, their vision, becomes the anchor that holds them in place. And the world never gets to experience what they had inside them because they decided imperfect action was worse than perfect inaction. But I'm telling you, perfect inaction is still inaction. And inaction, no matter how polished it looks, produces nothing. Now, I want to talk about the idea of the right time because this is the excuse with the most shine on it. People say, I am waiting for the right time, as if time sends out formal invitations. As if one Tuesday morning you are going to wake up and the sky will open and a voice will say, now, go, this is it. That is not how any of this works. The right time is not something that shows up. It is a decision you make. You do not find the right time. You pick a time and you make it right by acting on it. Every successful person you have ever looked up to started at a time that felt wrong. They started when the money was not there. They started when the plan had holes in it. They started when people around them were asking, are you sure about this? And they said, no, I am not sure, but I am starting anyway. That is the difference. Not certainty, action without certainty. That is what separates the person who builds something from the person who builds nothing. And here's the part that should really hit you, if you are willing to let it. The person who waits is not standing still. They think they are, but they are not. They are falling behind. Because the world does not pause while you work up the nerve. The economy shifts. The industry changes. The technology moves forward. The competition advances. And every day you spend standing at the starting line, telling yourself you are almost ready, the race keeps moving further away from you. You are not protecting your position by waiting. You are giving it away. You are handing your shot to whoever was willing to start with less preparation and more guts. And I do not say that to be cruel. I say it because the most common tragedy in the world is not the person who tried and fell short. It is the person who never tried at all and spent the rest of their life wondering what might have happened if they had. That is the kind of weight no amount of comfort can take off your shoulders. That is the real cost of waiting, and the bill comes whether you are ready for it or not. Think about the last time you heard a story about somebody who made it. Someone who started with almost nothing and built something extraordinary. Maybe it was a neighbor who launched a little company out of their garage and turned it into something real. Maybe it was somebody from your hometown who left with nothing and came back 10 years later with everything. You heard that story, and what did you do with it? I will tell you what most people do. They smile, they nod, they say, good for them, and then they go right back to whatever they were doing before, as if they just heard a nice little anecdote instead of a piece of hard evidence that should have changed the way they see their own life. That is the problem I want to dig into right now. It is not that people do not have access to proof. It is that they treat proof like entertainment. When someone in your field, in your city, in your same income range, dealing with your same disadvantages goes out and achieves something meaningful, that is not a feel-good story. That is a courtroom exhibit. That is evidence entered into the record that the path exists, and that someone who started roughly where you started, walked it, and made it through. Now you can do one of two things with that evidence. You can admire it from a distance, the way you might admire a painting on a gallery wall. Something nice to look at, but not something you expect to touch. Or you can treat it the way a serious person treats evidence, which means you study it, you ask what it reveals, and you adjust your own behavior based on what it proves. Most people go with the first option. They look at other people's success the way they look at a sunset. Beautiful, but totally unrelated to what they do tomorrow morning. Here is what I wish people understood about somebody else's success, because this is the part that gets buried under all the applause. When another person succeeds, they have not just done something for themselves. They have eliminated one of your excuses. Every single one. If someone from your neighborhood made it, you can no longer say the neighborhood is the problem. If someone with your same education level made it, you can no longer say education was what held you back. If someone who started later than you made it, you can no longer claim your window has closed. Their success is not just their win. It is the dismantling of the story you have been telling yourself about why you cannot do it. And that is uncomfortable because most people have gotten really attached to that story. They have decorated it, they have furnished it, They have made it a cozy little place to live. And now somebody's achievement just walked through the front door and exposed the whole thing as fiction. Let me put this in terms that are hard to argue with. Picture yourself standing at the bottom of a mountain, and you have been telling anyone who will listen that the mountain cannot be climbed. The weather is too rough. The terrain is too steep. The gear is too expensive. You have built a very solid case, and honestly, some people have started to agree with you. Then one afternoon, somebody walks right past you, starts climbing, and reaches the top. They come back down, dusty and worn out, and they say, "It was tough, but it can be done." Now what happens to your whole argument? It does not just get weaker, it falls apart completely. Not because your feelings about the mountain were wrong, but because the facts changed. Someone did the thing you said could not be done. And now your position is no longer, "This is impossible." Your position is, "This is possible, and I have chosen not to do it." That is a very different sentence, and most people are not willing to say it out loud. This is why I believe the way people take in success stories tells you almost everything about their character. Watch how someone reacts when they hear about another person's achievement, and you will learn just about all you need to know about where they are heading. The person who hears about someone else's success and immediately asks, "How did they do it? What can I learn from this? What did they see that I have been missing?" That person is going somewhere. They are treating the story like a map, not a movie. But the person who hears the same story and says, "Well, they got lucky," or "They had the right connections," or "Must be nice," that person has already decided that success is something that happens to other people. And once you decide success belongs to everyone but you, you have let yourself off the hook from ever chasing it. That feels comfortable in the moment, but over a lifetime, it is devastating. So what does it really mean to be a spectator versus a participant? Let's talk about it, because I think people do not realize how much of their life they spend watching instead of doing. A spectator watches the game. They cheer, they criticize, they break down every single play from the comfort of their seat, and they are completely convinced they know what the players should have done differently. But they never step on the field. They never feel what it is like out there. They never take a hit and have to decide whether to get back up or stay down. And the strangest part is that spectators often believe they are involved. They feel the emotions. They wear the jersey. They argue about the game at work the next day like they were part of it. But they were not part of it. They were watching somebody else live at full volume while they sat at half volume and called it participation. The same thing happens with success. People read the biographies. They listen to the interviews. They go to conferences, take notes, and feel that buzz of energy that comes from being near someone who has done something great. And for a moment, sometimes for a whole weekend, they feel like they are part of the action. But Monday morning rolls around and they go right back to the same routine, the same habits, the same complaints, because they were never actually in the game. They were in the stands. They consumed the success story the same way they watch a TV show, passively, from a safe distance, with zero obligation to change anything about their own life when it is over. And I want to suggest to you that this might be one of the most expensive habits a person can develop, because it gives you the feeling of moving forward without any of the actual progress. Here is the shift I am asking you to make, and I believe it is one of the most important changes you will ever make in how you think. Stop treating other people's success as inspiration. Start treating it as evidence. Inspiration wears off. You know that as well as I do. You can feel inspired Saturday morning and completely flat by Saturday night. Inspiration is just a feeling, and feelings are not reliable. But evidence does not wear off. Evidence sits right in front of you and says, "This is what is possible. This is what somebody actually did." The question is no longer whether it can happen. The question is whether you are going to act on the fact that it can. That is a completely different relationship with someone else's achievement. It is no longer passive. It is no longer comfortable. It is confrontational. It walks up to you and says, "You saw the proof. Now what are you going to do about it?" And I want to leave you with this thought before we move on, because I believe it is the one that matters the most. Every success story you have come across that you did nothing with is not neutral. It is not some harmless piece of entertainment that floated through your life without any real consequence. It is a moment when the universe showed you the door and you looked at it, admired the craftsmanship, commented on the hinges, and walked away. That door was not opened just for the person who walked through it. It was opened for everyone who was paying attention. And paying attention does not mean watching, it means acting. It means treating the proof like a personal summons. It means saying, if that person could do it from where they were standing, then the ground I am standing on is not the problem. I am the problem, and I am also the solution. That is the only honest response to somebody else's success. Not applause, not envy, not admiration from a distance, but the quiet, serious decision to stop watching and start building. There is a version of your life that nobody sees. Not your family, not your friends, not your coworkers, not the people who think they know you best. There are hours in your day that belong completely to you. Hours that pass without a witness, without applause, without anybody standing over your shoulder saying, "Good job, keep going." And I want to tell you something about those hours because I believe they are the most important hours of your life. What you do when nobody is watching is the truest measure of who you really are. Not what you do on stage, not what you do when the room is packed and the energy is high and people are clapping. That version of you is easy to produce. Anybody can show up when the spotlight is on. The question that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary is this: what do you do when the spotlight goes off and the room is empty and the only audience is the ceiling above your head? Let's put this in practical terms, because big ideas without specifics are just decoration. I am talking about the person who gets up at 5 in the morning, not because they have to, but because they decided that the first 2 hours of the day belong to their future. Nobody asked them to get up that early. No boss demanded it. No contract required it. They set that alarm themselves, and when it went off in the dark, they did not negotiate with the pillow. They did not smack the snooze button 3 times and roll over and promise to try again tomorrow. They got up, they put their feet on the floor, and they went to work on the thing that matters most to them, in silence and solitude, with nobody to impress and nobody to applaud. That is where success actually lives. It does not live in the presentation you gave to the board. It lives in the 14 nights you stayed up rewriting that presentation until every single word earned its place. I want to talk about boring repetition for a moment, because this is the part that almost nobody wants to hear. People love the highlight reel. They love the story of the breakthrough, the big moment, the day everything changed. But what they do not love, what they actively run from, is the truth about what came before that moment. And what came before that moment was tedium. It was doing the same thing over and over and over again, long after it stopped being exciting, long after the novelty wore off, long after every part of you wanted to move on to something new and fresh and interesting. The concert pianist did not sit down and play beautifully the first time. She sat at that bench for thousands of hours, running the same scales, the same passages, the same pieces, until her fingers knew the notes better than her brain did. And during all those thousands of hours, nobody was filming. Nobody was writing a story about her dedication. She was alone in a room with an instrument and a choice: keep going or stop. She kept going, and that is why you eventually heard her play and thought it looked effortless. This is true in every field, every discipline, every area of life where real excellence shows up. The business owner who seems to have a magic touch spent years making calls that went nowhere, writing proposals that got turned down, following up with people who never returned the call. The athlete who makes the impossible look routine spent a decade in a gym running drills that would bore you senseless if you had to watch them for more than 10 minutes. The writer whose book moved you to tears sat alone at a desk for months, sometimes years, producing pages that got tossed out, rewritten, tossed out again, and rewritten one more time. None of those hours were glamorous. None of them made for a good story at dinner. But every single one of those hours was a deposit into an account that eventually paid out in a way the whole world could see. The world just never saw the deposits. They only saw the withdrawal. Now, I want to bring up something that people rarely talk about, and it is the specific skill of saying no when you need to. I do not mean saying no to obviously bad things. That is easy enough, at least in theory. I mean saying no to good things in order to protect the great thing. This is one of the hardest disciplines a person can build because it requires you to turn down something that is pleasant, reasonable, and immediately rewarding in favor of something that is difficult, uncertain, and far off in the distance. Your friends invite you out on a Friday night and every part of your social wiring says go. But you have committed to working on something that matters to you, something that will not build itself, something that needs the exact hours your friends are asking you to give up. Saying no in that moment is not dramatic. Nobody writes songs about the person who stayed home on a Friday night and worked on their business plan. But that Friday night, multiplied by 50, multiplied by 200, is the difference between the person who talks about their dream and the person who actually builds it. And here is what makes this even harder. Nobody is going to thank you for it. Not at first. Not for a long time. The people around you will not understand why you are pulling back from social events, why you are spending weekends differently, why you seem less available and more locked in. Some of them will take it personally. Some of them will accuse you of changing, and they will not mean it as a compliment. They will mean it as a criticism because your discipline is making them uncomfortable. When you start doing things differently, the people who are still doing things the old way feel the contrast, and that contrast can feel like judgment even when you have not said a single word. So understand this. The private work you do will not just go unnoticed. It will sometimes be resented. And you have to be willing to endure that resentment without explaining yourself, without getting defensive, without rearranging your schedule to make everyone else feel better. Now, I want to talk about the loneliness of this process because I do not think people prepare for it. And I think that is why so many of them give up. Building something meaningful is a lonely thing. Not always, and not completely, but in its most critical hours, it is just you. It is you in the blank page. It is you in the hard phone call you have been putting off. It is you and the pile of receipts that need organizing. It is you and the decision to keep going when nothing on the outside is telling you it is working. There are no cheerleaders at 4:30 in the morning. There is no motivational playlist running in the background while you go through your numbers for the third time. There is only the quiet hum of your own effort, and you have to learn to find that hum enough. You have to learn to let the work itself be the reward, at least for now, because the external rewards, the recognition, the income, the respect, those show up later, sometimes much later. And the gap between the work and the reward is where most people lose their nerve. I believe that accepting this loneliness is a skill in itself, and it is one that most people refuse to develop. They refuse to develop it because it is uncomfortable, and our whole culture is built around avoiding discomfort. We are surrounded by noise and stimulation and distraction everywhere we turn, and all of it is designed to keep you from sitting alone with your thoughts and your responsibilities. So when you deliberately choose solitude, when you choose to sit in a quiet room and do hard work instead of reaching for the easy comfort of company or entertainment, You are doing something that cuts against the grain of just about everything around you. And that is exactly why it is so valuable. The things that are easy to do get done by everybody. The things that are hard to do, the things that require you to sit with discomfort and keep working anyway, those get done by the few. And the few are the ones who eventually end up standing where everyone else wishes they were. So here's what I want you to understand, and I want you to carry this with you into every quiet morning and every late night and every solitary hour of effort that nobody will ever see. The private work is the real work. It is the foundation underneath the building that everyone admires. Nobody walks past a beautiful building and says, "What a magnificent foundation." They do not see it. They do not even think about it. But without it, the building does not stand. Every hour you spend in private doing the unglamorous, tedious, repetitive work of building something that matters is an hour spent pouring that foundation. And one day, not today, maybe not this year, but one day, something will rise from that foundation that the world can see. And they will call it talent. They will call it luck. They will call it overnight success. And you will smile quietly because you will know the truth. You will know about the mornings. You will know about the silence. You will know about the hours that had no audience and no applause. And you will know that those hours, those invisible, thankless, lonely hours, were the hours that made everything else possible. I want you to do something with me right now, and I want you to take it seriously. I want you to imagine that your life is over. Not in a dark way, not in a way that is meant to scare you, but in the way a person stands at the end of a long road and turns around to look at where they have been. You are at the end. The work is finished. The years have been spent. And now you are looking back at the whole thing. Every decision, every delay, every bold move, every moment of hesitation. And you are asking yourself one question. One single question that matters more than anything you have ever been asked in your life. What did I build and whose name is on it? That is the question I want you to sit with, because it is the question that strips away every excuse, every justification, every clever story you have been telling yourself about why things did not go the way you wanted. At the end, there is no committee to share the blame with. There is no panel of judges to spread the responsibility around. There is you, and there is the life you built or did not build. And the final account has one name on it. Not your mother's name, not your father's name, not the name of the friend who let you down, or the employer who passed you over, or the economy that made things tough. Your name, just yours. And that is either a source of incredible pride or a source of deep regret, depending on how you spent the years between now and then. And here's something that we can't overlook: blame. I think blame is one of the most destructive habits a person can carry into the later chapters of their life. People spend years, decades in some cases, building a case against someone or something they believe held them back. The mentor who never showed up, the parents who did not support them, the spouse who did not believe in them, the partner who pulled out of the deal, the teacher who told them they were not good enough. And every single one of those grievances might be completely valid. I am not here to tell you that people have not done you wrong. They probably have. Life is full of people who will disappoint you, mislead you, underestimate you, and leave when you needed them the most. That is not what I am arguing about. What I am questioning is whether any of that matters when the final account gets tallied. Because here is the hard truth, and I want you to hear it clearly. You cannot hand in your list of grievances at the end of your life and expect somebody to adjust the score. There is no appeals process. There is no form you can file that says, my results would have been different if this person had done what they were supposed to do. That form does not exist. The results are the results. The life you lived is the life you lived. And no amount of explaining, no matter how thoughtful or justified, will add a single accomplishment to the record. The mentor who never appeared, that is a real loss, and I understand the weight of it. But at the end, the question is not, did you have a mentor? The question is, what did you do without one? The partner who walked away, that is a real wound, and I would never dismiss it. But the question is not, did your partner stay? The question is, what did you build after they left? I want to talk about credit now because credit has a way of warping the picture if you are not careful with it. Some people spend their whole lives trying to give credit to others for their success. And while gratitude is a beautiful thing, there is a version of this that becomes a way of hiding. If you hand all the credit to your circumstances, to the people who helped you, to the timing, to the lucky breaks, you are telling a story where you played a minor role in your own life. And that might feel humble, but it is not honest. Because the truth is, no matter who helped you, no matter what doors opened, no matter what advantages landed in your lap, you were the one who walked through those doors. You were the one who took that advantage and actually did something with it. You were the one who showed up day after day and turned opportunity into outcome. And at the end, when the account gets reviewed, that is the part that counts. Not what was given to you, but what you did with what was given. On the other side of that same coin, there are people who spend their lives pinning the blame for their failures on everybody but themselves. The economy tanked. The industry shifted. The technology moved too fast. The competition was not fair. The system was stacked against them. And again, some of that might be true. Economies do crash. Industries do shift. Competition can be brutal, and sometimes it is genuinely unfair. But the person who builds their whole identity around the obstacles they faced has made a critical mistake. They have confused their circumstances with their story. Your circumstances are the setting. Your story is what you did inside that setting. Two people can face the exact same set of obstacles, and one will build something remarkable, while the other will build a monument to their own frustration. The difference is not in the obstacles. The difference is in the response, and the response is the only thing that shows up in the final account. Look, I want you to think about the areas of your life where you have been waiting for somebody else to act before you take action yourself. Maybe you have been waiting for a spouse to get on board with your money plan before you start saving. Maybe you have been waiting for a coworker to pull their weight on the project before you step up and carry yours. Maybe you have been waiting for a kid to grow up, a parent to come around, a friend to say sorry before you allow yourself to move forward. And I want you to ask yourself this: what if they never do? What if the person you have been waiting on never changes, never shows up, never delivers what you were counting on? Does your life just stop? Does your progress come to a halt? Does your account stay empty because somebody else failed to make their deposit? If the answer is yes, then you have handed the pen to another person and asked them to write your story. And they will not write it the way you want it written. They will write their own story, and yours will stay blank. The freedom I want you to find, and I use that word on purpose because I believe this is the most liberating thing a person can realize, is the freedom that comes from total ownership. Not partial ownership, not shared ownership, not the kind where you say, I handle my part and they handle theirs. Total ownership, the kind that says, whatever happens in my life, I am treating it as mine. If it goes well, I built it. If it goes badly, I allowed it. If somebody else played a part, I am grateful. But the bottom line on the ledger still has my name on it. That is not a burden, even though it sounds like one. That is the purest form of freedom a person can experience, because it means nobody else holds the keys to your life. Nobody else can lock you out of your own potential. Nobody else can stop you from building what you are capable of building, because you have stopped waiting for their permission, their involvement, or their approval. I want to close with this, and I want it to be the last thing ringing in your mind when you walk out of this room. The final account is not a metaphor. It is not some poetic idea designed to make you feel something for an hour and then forget it by morning. It is the actual reality of your life. There will come a day, and none of us knows when the books close and the record is finished. And on that day, you will not be asked what you meant to do. You will not be asked what you planned, what you wished for, what you would have done if things had gone differently. You will be faced with what you actually did, the calls you made and the ones you ducked, the risks you took and the ones you talked yourself out of, the mornings you got up early and the mornings you did not, the times you pushed through and the times you quit, all of it, and it will be yours. Every single line of it will be yours. So the question is not whether you are ready for that day, because none of us ever fully are. The question is whether you are living today in a way that makes that account something worth reading. Not perfect. Nobody's account is perfect, but full, honest, built with your own hands, on your own time, with your own effort. That is the only account that matters. That is the only freedom that lasts. And it is available to you right now, today, this very moment, if you are willing to pick up the pen and start writing.